The alarm bells rang across Luna Station like a requiem, low and unrelenting, echoing through the metal corridors as though the station itself knew it might not survive what was coming. Jake Morrison leaned forward at his console, his eyes fixed on the distant flickers at the edge of the solar system. At first, he thought they were shadows, tricks of the light, comets, asteroids, some forgotten debris swept inward by gravity's pull. But as his instrument stabilized, his blood turned cold. These were not rocks. They were ships. Massive, alien ships, larger than anything humanity had ever constructed. They moved with deliberate grace, formations forming like the tightening of a fist. Their silhouettes were angular yet strangely curved, shapes that hurt the eye, like geometry that shouldn't exist in 3 dimensions. Even the smallest among them dwarfed Earth's greatest battleships. Jake's hand trembled as he pressed the emergency alert. The button glowed red, and alarms cascaded outward to every ship and colony in the system. The warning humanity had whispered about for centuries, buried in stories and speculation, had finally arrived. First contact. But not the peaceful dream of scientists. Not an exchange of knowledge. This was conquest. On the bridge of the UES Defiant, Captain Lisa Carter stood at the center of her command deck, staring into the abyss of the forward screens. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. War games. Tactical briefings. Hypothetical scenarios of alien arrival. But no simulation could prepare her for the truth of it. 43 ships formed Earth's defense line beside her flagship. 43 against hundreds, perhaps thousands, of alien vessels emerging from tears in space itself. It was like watching the universe bleed. "Captain," her communications officer said softly, his voice edged with disbelief. "We're receiving a transmission. It's, in perfect English." Carter nodded once. "Put it through." Fleet-wide. The voice that filled the bridge was not human. Cold. Mechanical. Emotionless, like a machine reading a command. Primitive species of the third planet. You have been selected for integration into the Zelrani Empire. Your technological level indicates suitability for manual labor assignments. Prepare for immediate surrender. The words hung in the air like ash. Lisa's jaw clenched. Her crew looked to her, eyes wide with anger and fear. She pressed her command terminal. "This is Captain Lisa Carter of the United Earth Defense Force. We request peaceful negotiations." But her words were severed mid-sentence. 3 immense beams of violet light lanced from the alien vanguard. They struck the orbital defense platforms around Earth, massive fortresses that had taken years and fortunes to construct. For a moment, the sky above Earth glowed purple. Then, nothing. No explosions. No debris. The platforms were simply gone. The voice returned. "This demonstration shows our capability. You have 72 of your time units called hours to surrender. Government leaders will present themselves for processing. Your population will be relocated to work environments. Resistance will result in planetary sterilization." Lisa Carter felt heat rise in her chest, not fear, but rage. To these invaders, humanity wasn't even an adversary. They were livestock. An acquisition. She turned to her crew. "We're not livestock," she said softly. And then she opened a channel to Earth Command. Beneath Washington, in an emergency bunker carved into the Earth itself, President Daniel Hayes sat at the head of a long steel table. Around him gathered the weight of humanity's power, generals, admirals, and government officials. Admiral Chris Taylor leaned over the glowing map of the system. "Our fleet is 400 strong, Mr. President. They have at least 2,000 ships. Their weapons can erase our largest structures in a single strike. Their shields appear to be energy-based. Our current weapons may not even touch them." General Patricia Woods added grimly, "Our ground forces are strong. But if they can sterilize planets from orbit, ground troops mean nothing." We must assume total technological superiority. The president's face was pale, but steady. Options? Secretary of State Palmer cleared his throat. Surrender. Perhaps we can negotiate terms if we comply. Wood's voice cut through him like a blade. Or we fight. We may die, but at least we die free. Silence filled the room. Everyone knew the math. The numbers didn't favor humanity. But numbers weren't the only thing that defined a species. Hayes rose slowly. Tell Captain Carter to inform them we'll give our answer in 72 hours. Admiral Taylor frowned. Sir, 72 hours won't change the outcome. We can't build ships fast enough. The president's lips curved into the smallest, hardest smile. Then we won't fight their war. We'll fight ours. Humanity has survived because we adapt. Because we refuse the inevitable. We'll find a way. Back aboard the Defiant, Lisa Carter delivered humanity's reply. This is Captain Carter. We have received your ultimatum. Humanity will respond in exactly 72 hours. The alien reply came instantly. Acceptable. Use this time to prepare for surrender. Any attempt at military action will result in immediate bombardment. Lisa cut the transmission and looked around her bridge. Faces stared back at her, not broken, not defeated, but defiant. We have 3 days, she said quietly. 3 days to figure out how to beat an empire that has conquered worlds beyond counting. 3 days to remind them what it means to face humanity. Her weapons officer whispered, but Captain, how? Their ships are larger, more advanced. We're outgunned 5-1. Lisa gave a tired smile. Lieutenant, ever heard the story of David and Goliath? Across the system, word spread like fire in dry grass. On Mars, Captain Ben Foster rallied his defense squadron, knowing his 24 ships couldn't possibly stand against thousands, but preparing anyway. In the asteroid belt, mining platforms became fortresses overnight. Civilian freighters were welded with weapons. Every engine and hull became part of the war effort. On Earth, Dr. Elena Rodriguez pored over the energy signatures from the alien demonstration. Every weapon, she believed, no matter how advanced, had limits. Weaknesses. And she would find them. And among the Zelrani fleet, Admiral Vexathura watched the humans quietly. He had seen this pattern before, primitive species panicking, posturing, gathering for a futile last stand. He had crushed 200 worlds this way. Humanity, he believed, would be no different. But Vexathura did not know humanity. He did not know the species that had climbed out of caves, split the atom, and walked on the moon. All while warring with itself, all while refusing surrender to anything. And now, given 72 hours to prepare, humanity would show him something new. Something no admiral in his empire had ever seen before. Not submission. Not obedience. But defiance. If you're still with me, take a moment to reflect. What do you think humanity would choose in this situation? Surrender, or fight? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your perspective shapes how we continue building these speculative stories together. And if you enjoy these slow, philosophical journeys into science fiction, make sure you subscribe. There's so much more to come. The hours tick down like sand through a glass too narrow to let it fall cleanly. Each second stretched, jagged, resisting, as though time itself understood what humanity faced. Across Earth, lights burned through the night. Cities that once thrummed with ordinary life became command centers, factories, and training grounds. The rhythm of human existence had shifted in an instant, no longer about progress or comfort, but survival. Yet beneath the weight of fear, something older stirred. Defiance. A refusal written into the marrow of the species. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked without sleep. In a dim laboratory beneath Geneva, surrounded by screens and projections of alien data, she chased a thread of possibility. The alien's weapon signature fascinated her. It was elegant, almost too elegant, as though it had been engineered not just for destruction, but for spectacle. Energy bent and folded on itself in ways that Earth's physics barely understood. But there it was. A pattern. A ripple just before each strike. A fluctuation that suggested instability. Every weapon has a limit, she murmured, sketching equations across a tablet. Even gods bleed. Her colleagues leaned over her shoulder, some skeptical, others desperate for hope. If Elena was right, the key to humanity's survival wasn't to match the alien fleet in strength, but to find where their strength cracked. She leaned back, exhaustion clawing at her, and whispered to herself. We don't need to win everywhere. Just once. Just enough to show them we will not kneel. Far from Earth, on the dark side of Jupiter's largest moon, a different kind of preparation unfolded. Commander Alex Walker crouched in the hangar of the stealth corvette Shadow's Edge. His ship was blacker than space itself, cloaked in experimental alloys that bent light and absorbed emissions. It was humanity's single chance to send a spy into the heart of the alien fleet. His mission, infiltrate, observe, and return with knowledge. Knowledge, Hayes had insisted, would be their sharpest weapon. As Walker strapped in, his second-in-command glanced at him nervously. Sir, if they detect us. Walker gave a thin smile. Then we'll learn what their prisons look like. Or their graves. The Shadow's Edge slipped into the void like a whisper swallowed by silence. Engines cooled, systems dimmed to embers, every piece of technology tuned for invisibility. They glided toward the storm of alien warships, each one vast enough to eclipse cities, each one pulsing with power humanity had never dreamed of. To look at them was to feel like an insect crawling toward the boots of giants. And yet Walker whispered to his crew, remember. Giants fall too. Back on Earth, President Hayes stood before a wall of screens, addressing the scattered leaders of humanity's colonies. His voice was steady, but it carried more than orders. It carried belief. We are not fighting for victory in the way they define it. We are not fighting for territory, or power, or even survival alone. We are fighting for the right to choose. To say no, that is humanity's greatest weapon. No empire, however vast, can truly understand it. He paused, letting the words settle. If we must fall, let us fall as humans, not as slaves. For a moment, silence. Then one by one, voices answered across the system. We will fight. Earth stands. Mars stands. The belt stands. Humanity, fractured for so long, had found unity not in peace, but in defiance. In the black sea of space, Walker's mission reached its turning point. The Shadow's Edge drifted within the outer layers of the alien armada. What he saw stole his breath. The fleet was not simply military, it was industrial. Massive carriers berthed smaller craft by the hundreds, each designed for capture, for transport, for control. This was no battle group. This was a machine of empire, perfected across millennia, grinding world after world into submission. And then he saw something stranger still. Not all ships were Zelrani. Among their vessels floated captured craft from other civilizations, retrofitted and bound into service. Fragments of alien histories erased, their survivors folded into the same promise humanity had been given, integration or annihilation. Walker felt a chill. They've done this before. Hundreds of times. We're not the first. But in that revelation came a spark of fire. If others had been broken, then perhaps Earth could be the first to endure. The first to say no and make it matter. Dr. Rodriguez's findings began to crystallize. The alien weapons required enormous energy buildup. Their shield cycled in resonance with those same frequencies. It meant that for the briefest instant, just before firing, their defenses weakened, not much, not enough to exploit casually. But enough. She recorded her report with a raw, trembling voice. If we time our strikes to the instant of their fire, we can cut through. It will be like threading a needle through a hurricane. But it is a chance. Her words traveled across encrypted channels, sparking hope and terror in equal measure. Hope, because humanity now had a strategy. Terror, because the strategy demanded perfection. One mistake, one misstep, and Earth would burn. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiant, Captain Carter received the update. She stood at the observation deck, watching the curve of Earth beneath her, blue, fragile, beautiful. Her XO stepped beside her. Even if Rodriguez is right, it's a long shot. Carter nodded slowly. Everything about being human is a long shot. Do you think our ancestors knew, when they lit fire in caves, that one day we'd stare down gods from the stars? No. They just lit the fire anyway. Her eyes hardened. That's what we'll do. Light the fire. Even if it burns us alive. The countdown to humanity's answer crept closer. 50 hours. 40. 36. The aliens waited in silence. Their fleet held orbit at the edge of the system, patient as stone. Admiral Vexathura observed the humans' frantic movements with mild curiosity. His species had seen this pattern countless times. Resistance, defiance, all ending in ash. 72 hours, he muttered to himself. And then another world falls. But for the first time in centuries, doubt tugged faintly at him. Something about this species felt different. Their energy. Their refusal. Their eyes in the transmission. As if they knew something he didn't. Back in the bunker, President Hayes received Walker's first data packet. The images of captured alien ships shook him deeply. Humanity was not alone in its suffering, the galaxy itself seemed to groan under the weight of empire. He turned to his advisors. This is not just about Earth. This is about every species they've crushed. If we resist, we are not fighting alone. We are fighting for all of them. Even if they don't know it yet. For the first time since the ultimatum, a smile cracked across the room. It wasn't joy, or relief. It was something sharper. Hope. The clock ticked to 24 hours. Humanity's fleets gathered, weapons primed, hearts steady. Across the world and colonies, whispers spread not of surrender, but of standing tall. The Zelrani Empire had given them 3 days to bow. Instead, humanity had spent those 3 days preparing to fight. And as the final day dawned, a single truth rang clear across the stars. When Earth said no, the universe would hear it. What do you think? Could humanity truly hold its ground against a galactic empire? Or would our defiance only hasten our destruction? Share your thoughts below. I read every one, and they help shape the way we explore these stories together. And if you want to walk with me through the next chapter of this long night, the moment of humanity's answer, make sure you subscribe. Part 3 is where the story truly ignites. 72 hours had passed. The countdown was over. Across the system, humanity held its breath. In bunkers, in warships, in stations orbiting dead moons, billions waited for the words that would decide their fate. Would Earth bend its knee, or would it rise, knowing full well that rising might mean annihilation? The Zelrani fleet loomed at the edge of the solar system, vast as a night sky all their own. Admiral Vexathura sat upon his throne-like command chair, serene in his expectation. He had seen this moment countless times. The pleading. The submission. The inevitable choice of the weaker. When the transmission request came from Earth, he leaned forward. Put them through. The screen lit. President Hayes appeared, his face shadowed but unbroken. Behind him, the flags of Earth's nations, banners that had once symbolized division, now gathered into one. He spoke slowly, deliberately, his words carved from something harder than fear. To the Zelrani Empire. We have considered your offer. We have weighed your terms. And we have chosen. The silence stretched. Across Earth, people leaned closer to their screens. In the fleet, soldiers gripped the edges of their consoles. Even Vexathura, for the briefest instant, felt a flicker of curiosity. Hay's eyes sharpened. His voice became steel. We choose defiance. We choose freedom. And if the price of freedom is death, then we will pay it. But we will never kneel. The transmission ended. Admiral Vexathura exhaled slowly, disappointment mingling with irritation. So be it, he murmured. He raised his hand. Advance. Begin sterilization. The alien fleet surged forward. On the UES Defiant, alarms screamed. Lisa Carter stood tall at the center of her bridge, calm as the storm rose. All ships, this is Carter. You've heard the order. This is our stand. We do not fight for survival alone. We fight to remind the galaxy that humanity does not bow. Time your shots. Trust Rodriguez's data. And remember, they bleed too. The fleet acknowledged, voices grim but resolute. The battle for Earth began. The first wave of alien fire streaked across the void, violet beams tearing toward humanity's fragile line. For an instant, it seemed inevitable. But then, the trap was sprung. Human ships fired not at random, not in desperation, but with precision. They waited for the moment Rodriguez had discovered, the heartbeat before the alien weapons fired, when their shields flickered like a blink. Missiles screamed into the void. Railguns thundered. Plasma lances lit the black. And for the first time in its long history of conquest, a Zelrani warship died. It erupted in silence, metal torn asunder, light spilling like blood across the stars. Humanity's fleet roared, not with sound but with action, as the impossible became real. Another ship followed. Then another. Small victories, yes, but each one a spark. Sparks that, together, became fire. On the shadow's edge, hidden within the chaos, Walker's crew fed targeting data to the fleet. Alien weak points. Energy fluctuations. Every secret stolen from the enemy now turned against them. Walker grinned through sweat. They wanted us to surrender. Instead, we're teaching them fear. Admiral Vexathura rose from his throne, his calm cracking. He had expected resistance, but not success. Not this. His claws dug into the armrests. How, he growled. How can primitives breach our shields? No answer came. None that satisfied him. For the first time in centuries, he felt it, the taste of uncertainty. The battle raged. Humanity's ships fell in fire and silence, one after another, outnumbered and outgunned. But each death bought time. Each sacrifice carried weight. On Mars, Ben Foster's defense squadron hurled themselves at the enemy, tearing down carriers before being consumed. In the belt, miners turned soldiers rammed freighters into alien hulls, detonating payloads that ripped through giants. On Earth, civilians in bunkers whispered prayers, not for survival, but for victory, however brief. And through it all, humanity's fleet refused to break. Elena Rodriguez sat in her lab, trembling as updates poured in. Losses mounted. The math was brutal. But the fact that there were any victories at all, that was the miracle. She whispered to herself, tears burning her eyes. They'll remember this. Even if we die, they'll remember. On the Defiant, Carter's ship reeled from impact. Fires tore across decks. But her voice did not waver. Hold the line, she shouted. If we fall, let us fall standing. Her weapons officer cried out, target locked, enemy flagship. Carter clenched her jaw. Fire. The shot struck true. The alien flagship shuddered, shields faltering in the rhythm Rodriguez had predicted. For one breathless instant, the impossible loomed again. And then, the flagship split apart, its body torn in two, spilling wreckage into the void. The bridge erupted in cheers. Humanity had slain a giant. Across the galaxy, unseen eyes watched. Species enslaved, scattered, or hiding in shadows. They saw the impossible, a primitive world standing against the Empire, not with surrender, but with fire. Whispers spread in languages the Zelrani had tried to silence. The humans fight. The humans resist. The humans said no. Admiral Vexathura stared at the destruction of his flagship, fury boiling in his veins. "This changes nothing," he hissed. But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. Something had changed. Not the balance of power. Not the inevitable outcome. But something deeper, more dangerous. The illusion of inevitability was broken. The battle dragged on, bloody and merciless. Humanity's fleets dwindled. Their numbers could not hold forever. And yet, in that day of fire and ruin, Earth had done something no other world had managed in centuries. They had made the Empire bleed. And more than that, they had shown the galaxy that resistance was possible. President Hayes listened to the final reports in silence. His face was weary, lined with grief. But beneath it was a fire that no grief could quench. He spoke softly to his staff. "Whether we live or fall, today will echo. The universe will remember that Earth was not conquered quietly. That humanity said no." In the ruins of orbit, as smoke drifted into the void, Carter whispered to herself. "We are still here." Her ship burned. Her fleet lay shattered. But in the distance, dozens of alien wrecks floated too. Proof that even gods could die. And with that proof, humanity had given the galaxy something stronger than fear. It had given them hope. For centuries, the Zelrani Empire had crushed resistance with inevitability. But now, one world, fragile, unprepared, human, had shattered that myth. The war was far from over. The cost was unbearable. But a seed had been planted. And seeds, as humanity had always known, could grow into forests. When Earth said no, the sound did not stop at the edge of the solar system. It echoed. It spread. And somewhere, in the dark corners of the galaxy, others listened, and began to wonder what might happen if they said no as well. And so the story closes, or perhaps, it only begins. Because defiance, once spoken, cannot be unheard. Tell me, if you lived in this future, would you stand with Earth, even knowing the odds? Share your answer below. Your voice is part of this story, part of what keeps these tales alive. If you've traveled with me through all three parts of this quiet rebellion in the stars, make sure you subscribe. More stories await, slower, deeper journeys through the possibilities of humanity among the infinite.